Thanks very much. Interestingly, from the start, I had, you plan something and you know exactly how it's going to work. And then the first two speakers came in and really open, I guess, is what the whole purpose of it is to challenge what you're thinking. And both of them challenged what I was thinking in the sense that they, using technology, are going to be the ones that have a massive impact on changing my life. Building the new amputee legs, new prosthetics, building new wheelchairs. You know, I'm really lucky. I've got a really lightweight, independent chair because I fought for it, because I understand the system, because lots and lots and lots. But there are so many children out there that don't have that equipment in the UK, let alone beyond the UK. But the first speaker, for being able to also just say how things are going to change, how things are going to move forwards, and the impact. And we were just speaking and saying, that's the sort of things that are going to change my life. I can raise the issues, and I can say what I struggle with, and I can tell you what it's like to use a wheelchair, but I can't necessarily change the next bit because I'm not an engineer. And I can explain what I want to do. I'm going to do the Marathon des Sables. I'm going to do a trek across Africa next year to go and start proving and showing what you can do with equipment and with being strong. But that ultimately won't happen unless technology moves with me and with my vision. So to be able to see that and to be able to work those in conjunction with each other, that's how these things are going to change for us all. There's a young boy locally, a 10-year-old boy, who's just had his leg amputated. And using sport, he is now, he's opened his eyes to being able to be that independent boy still. He can still be the person that can run around. He can do it in a chair. So he's got a sports chair now. I've got a sports chair at school for him. So every playtime, he puts that on as his pair of trainers. So for me, every chair I have or every piece of equipment I have, that is a bit like another pair of shoes for me. I don't have high-heeled wheelchairs, by the way. That really is way out of my league. And I didn't have high heels before. I just wore DMs and trainers, so that's okay. I can live with that. But my off-road chair, I've got an off-road chair for walking the dog. I go out at Hankley, and I get people in the middle of Hankley Common or in Scotland when I'm camping or in Dartmoor camping the other weekend. They actually come up to me and go, "Are you all right? Do you know how you're going to get there?" I'm like, I've got here, and I'm on my own. I've got a tent. I've got Labradors. It's all right, I'll get back again. But people, I think it's this sort of challenging things constantly. It's that looking at things changing perceptions of what is possible, and the fact that actually I'm still me, and that really gets lost. And that's the message I really want people to be able to take away, to be able to look at things and be able to see that person still. Because sadly, statistically, probably one of us in the room is going to be going home at some point from somewhere and have a car accident. And many of you probably have done already. I don't mean it hasn't happened. And you might become an amputee. You might become a spinal injuries. You might be needing to use a wheelchair. And that doesn't change who you are. But initially, it changes everyone's reaction around you and what they think you are and what they think you can do. There's a MD of a company who I've been doing some work with, spinal injury, and is in a chair. He can't use his legs, and overnight he just gave up and took the fact that somebody would push him. And I just sort of looking at this guy who's so powerful in his world of work and has done so much, and yet for him not being able to walk was the end of who he was. And so for me, using sport is a really clever way of identifying a person, getting you to see who you still are, becoming part of a community. So many things that we say that almost sound really basic, but get lost when you start using a chair or you have a disability that people can't see, and so people make judgments on you because you don't look disabled. And that's another, there's two extremes. I'm the extreme that looks disabled, that is disabled to society, and then there's the other extreme of people that it doesn't show, and those guys have a really different battle as well. And I'm working with some children at schools at the moment who are in that situation to try and get them to be understood, to understand what their challenges are, but also to still identify that they are that person. This is a bit of just what I do in the sense of where I'm coming from schools. The little boy top right, he's the one with the new amputation, and he's back in PE within a month. He's back doing all the things he wanted to be doing. And he's an incredible boy, partly because of his mindset, partly because of his family. There's so many reasons that we as people can have a big impact on the outcome of people that are going through that sort of life-changing journey is probably the best way of putting it. And it is, but it doesn't change who you are. you still are the same person that got up that morning. You are still the same person who had dreams, and that doesn't change. The other end of it is going through, so one of the things I'm doing a lot more about is eating disorders and body image and mental health, and I do quite a lot through guides and starting to go into that area, because it's girls' self-confidence, body image, all these things are changing massively, and it has a big, big impact then on that individual, and then that sort of cohort of group of girls that is going through. It can have a really negative spin-off onto people. But using sport, using activities that get them to feel good about themselves, sometimes it is one-to-one work, and sometimes it is about building somebody's confidence through, if you like, psychological interventions, by being able to get them to understand positive psychology, understand that actually negative, sort of destructive talking to yourself actually does have a really negative impact on you. And all of us go home and say, at the end of the day, oh, I'm useless, I'm rubbish. And actually that has a really big spin-off on all of us. So if you're then struggling about something else at the same time, that has an even bigger impact on those people. So again, going back to young boy at school, he has amazing, A is amazing, but he just is interesting teachers. So he was at school, everyone knew that he was going to have this amputation. It was done electively for medical reasons. He went and came back within 2 weeks to school, which, because of his mindset, is where he wanted to be. He wanted to learn. He wants to be part of that community. He's part of his friends. And for him, that's where he feels good. So he was back in school, but automatically, or interestingly, he gets treated differently straight away. Yet he was the same child that came into school 2 weeks ago with his 2 legs. He's now using a chair, and suddenly he's being spoken to differently. Why is that? It is really interesting that as a group of adults, that we think we understand things, and yet actually we've made that subconscious decision, and possibly some of them don't realise they're doing it, but getting into the lift with him, he needs to be in with an adult in the lift. That's fine. So I got in with the lift with him, taught him how to get his chair in so we can both get in sideways into the lift. And I was questioned as to whether I was an adult to supervise him. I am an adult. I have no legs. That is it. I am still that person. I'm still however old I am. And those things, it's getting older and older. I feel like a really old athlete now. But it is really important. He sees those things, and automatically, he's very clever, he's very on the ball, and he rolled his eyes at me, and I looked back at him and went, yeah, I know. But it's about trying to give, if you have those confidence knocks right from the beginning, that's why people really struggle going back and rehabbing from that area. There's 2 models of ways of looking at things generally, and that's either the medical model or the social model. The medical model is looking at as blaming the individual, if you like, or seeing the disability as the individual's problem, whereas the social model looks at it as being that the society makes it very disabling for that individual. So steps, for example, make it so, yeah, if I had tarmac everywhere and there were no steps, yep, great, I don't have an issue really. So it is really interesting, the 2 very extreme, and obviously medical model is still very ingrained, and I've come up against it a lot. I'm hoping to start working more and more in medical areas so that people can understand and see what I do. I get questions to whether, still by doctors and people, that whether I can drive, what do I do, can I do this, can I do that? And I'm actually working with a couple of people now to try and change those perceptions again, using the car that I'm using. There's certain reasons behind it, and it is having a really positive effect on changing people's understandings about what I can do. For this little chap, again, and for some of the girls that I'm working with at secondary school, who really perceive themselves as just, there's no point in them even trying, that's where it has an impact, and it can have positive change. But all of you are the ones that have the biggest impact. It's your attitudes that help me to do that, and not treating them as though they are something that's sort of, I don't know, grown 60 horns and has gone blue and is, I don't know, green everywhere. It really doesn't change that. But right from the beginning, when I had my first amputation, I was on the ward and I came downstairs to the cafe the first time I was off the ward, And straight away, somebody said something, somebody then treated me differently from that moment. And now I am so aware of it. And I'm probably hyper aware of it in some ways. But I also take those things and then hopefully use them in a positive way through then running workshops to get people to actually understand the real life implications of what you're saying. Okay? And it doesn't have to be a really nasty, it doesn't have to be a really obvious comment. It is just the little things that make a big, big difference a lot of the time. So wheelchairs and things, again, a massive difference. It's a bit like what clothes you're wearing. Again, they're different pairs of trainers. They have different functions, if you like. And for those children, again, that's what includes them. The ones that are sat out of PE nationally across the country, the statistics are appalling still. These kids aren't doing sport. They're the ones as well that almost need it as much, if not more, because it has a big impact on their social care, their social integration afterwards. If you're not strong enough to lift yourself and transfer from your chair across to your car or onto your bed, you then are relying on hoisting or nursing care, whereas so many of the people that I work with don't need to, but are in the position they are because the medical model has fed them into that system and spat them out down that route. And it takes an awful lot to undo that and give back the confidence to somebody. But it is possible, and us as a community can do that and can change that and hopefully will change it. But it really does take a lot of work. Steps, ramps, all these things, they're great. Well, steps are rubbish, but ramps are great. But if you look at all of the things that we can do to adapt and make the world easier, it's not always those big lumps of concrete that become a ramp that make my life easier. It's actually people not parking in the blue badge space that means I can't get out of my car. The hatching, I have to chuck my chair in and out. I have to open the door fully. That's the only way I can get in and out of my car. When somebody comes and parks on the hatching, or parks so close to me, or parks in the woods next to my car despite the stickers down the side, and I have to wait for an hour and a half to come back and get in my car, that doesn't really help my life become very independent. And I can probably speak up for myself, and that's hopefully what I do as well for some of the children, is to try and give them that voice, to give them that self-belief, so that hopefully, as I say, all of these things gradually change, and things like that are physical things that you all can do, a massive impact on somebody else's independence. If there are people out there, then I'm really happy to help you, to work with you. And please remember that if somebody has an accident, something changes for somebody, they are still the same person that went home that night or had that conversation with you, okay? And that is what you're going to do to make the biggest impact on their recovery and on their future life. So, thank you very much.